We are live now.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Morioki, member of SAS-K, Skeptics and Atheists Society of Kenya. Yeah, so just watch this video to the end and feel free to like and subscribe. Yeah, so today we're talking about humanism. Yeah, humanism. So guys, the word humanism, when you hear it, what goes through your minds when you hear humanism? Yeah, thanks. Anyone? When you hear humanism, what goes through your minds? Maybe a chill wave. When you hear humanism, what do you hear?
Well, I know what it means, but I think from the title, it's very hard to discern what it means. Like, I used to hear humanism, and I'm like, what is that? Does that mean like just being human? But I think humanism is about favoring rationality and science and the human experience over supernatural experience, and this belief that each human has intrinsic value. I'm not really sure I agree with that, but I think that's the basis of humanity. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, thanks, Chilwell. Okay, anybody else? El Maestro, what does humanism mean to you? El Maestro, are you there?
You've asked repeat the question.
Yeah. What does humanism mean to you? The word humanism.
Okay, humanism. I just treating your fellow human in a human. That is what I understand by humanism. Treating your fellow humans like the way you should treat a human.
Okay, thanks.
Because
Deve?
a human
Oh,
human has the sense, because a human being is not an animal who doesn't know between right and wrong. A human being at least is intelligent to know that. So you treat humans the way a human being should treat humanism. That's what I understand.
thanks, El Maestro. Deve?
Thanks, Muriuki. Hello, everybody. I am going to find the definition that is more detailed, and I'm going to find it, of course, with AI. And humanism is a philosophy, just a point of view or a stance that emphasizes human values. So, by emphasizing on human values and our interests, therefore, we guard the dignity of everybody, other than asking another person to come and referee us or to come and superintend upon us. So we are taking this on ourselves and actually rejecting supernaturalism. So we are only just human, okay? So the emphasis is on our reasoning and evidence of what our action can do to another person, harm them, injure them, or safeguard their dignity and their life. Just our actions and thinking. So you can see that there is a lot of intentionality on what we do, because it is going to depend on what another person. If I do something to Tom, something negative, what he is going to feel. So that is evidence right there, and the reason that I won't do that thing. And therefore, the autonomy, the responsibility is on me. My society depends on me. My neighborhood here depends on me. My neighborhood, the Kenyan neighborhood, you know, it depends on me. So that is where now the autonomy. So I have got this responsibility to do the right thing, and therefore the ethical framework is not on anything but on our own human experience. I know what hurts another person, and I might not know the full story, but if they tell me, whenever you do this thing, it harms me this way, then of course, because we have been given that kind of communication, then I have another experience of what hurts another person, then I'm not going to harm that person. And finally, humanism focuses on this one precious life that we have. This is all we have. It's precious. It's the only life that we have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Deve. Anybody else? A definition of humanism? Yeah. Maybe I have like 3 definitions here. Yeah? So the first one is humanism is a rationalist outlook or system of thought attaching primary importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. Let me repeat it. A rationalist outlook or system of thought attaching primary importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. Then the second one is a progressive philosophy of life that without theism or other spiritual benefits affirms our ability to lead ethical lives or fulfillment to ourselves. So basically, humanism removes the supernatural, the deity, the theism. Like human beings are responsible for their own actions. Yeah, so without God, without religion, we can still function and live good lives. So I don't know, do you guys think that humanism is better than religion? Just to compare, can we say that humanism is a better way of living than religion? Because it's up to us. We are the masters of our own destiny. We decide how to live our lives without fearing afterlives or God. So can we say that it's better than religion? Thanks. Is that a fair point to say that humanism is a better way of living than religion? Thanks. Stano. Stano, you
That
can go.
is like that is like comparing light and dark. So humanism involve the rational thinking. The people come together, they reason together, and they come up with a solution, or they come up with a certain morals. But for religion, it's just one person or a set as a small group of people who come up with their own solution or their own decision, and then it came from a divine. So all human to obey that rules that have been originated from a small group of people or from one person. So that means the people are not involved in making a certain decision at a range, but it's only one group or one person who make a rules and then claim he was given by a divine or by a God. So that means that rules may have some loophole or may be very unfair to people or to majority. So that means religion is far away in terms of moral value. But for humanity, they reason together, they see what can reduce harm, and they agree on that thing. But for religion, no matter whether it reduce harm or not, as long as I have come up with my own decision, I must try to enforce it to everybody, no matter whether it will undermine the other people's right. As long as I come and say, this is from my God or from divine. So that is why the moral of humanity is far much better than the moral of religion. And another thing, the religion does not change morality. Morality of religion does not change. It's not dynamic. But for humanity, it keep evolving. It keep changing according to what the people are seeing. There is some problem somewhere, we can change. But for religion, you cannot change what have been already said in the claim of divine command theory. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tano. So according to you, humanism is better than religion. Eh? That's what I heard, Tano.
Yeah, far much better.
Okay, thanks. Okay, anybody else? Is it fair to say that humanism is better than religion? Thanks, Ndebe.
Thanks, Muriuki. Just to add to Stano, the trouble with religion is that it is regional and cultural. Therefore, it doesn't capture, and it also depends on who is forming this religion. If this religion is formed by women, it doesn't capture men. If it is a religion formed by men, it won't capture women. Therefore, because religion is so regional and so personal, you can just see how personal and how cultural it is. Because if a religion is formed by goatherds or people who are nomads, you can just see it lacks agriculture. But but with humanism, because it is only dealing with the humanity, so it is all humanity, children, men, and women. So it is all humanity. In that case, it is more inclusive. Humanity is more inclusive than religion. Religion is too subjective because it depends on who formed that religion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Shadrach, what do you think? Can you say humanism is better than religion? Shadrach. Shadrach, are you there? Maybe not there. Okay, Chilwe, can you say humanism is better than religion?
Yeah.
Chilwe, are you there? Chilwe.
Yes.
Why? For what reason?
Because religion is irrational and superstitious and harmful to society and is holding us back from making progress in the world.
Okay, thanks. Okay, based on what you've said, why do you think humanists are so few? If it's more rational, why do you think that most people don't follow humanism, but they choose religion? What's the reason? Yet it makes more sense in religion, but it's they are minority. What's the reason?
Yeah,
David, is your hand up? Okay, yeah, okay.
I think it's because most people are not rational, or I think I would say most people are not philosophically intelligent. I've had this discussion with a few of my friends, uh, most of which are atheists. And I think the thing is, people can be intelligent in many different ways. Like sometimes people can be doctors or businessmen or engineers. And obviously, to be an engineer or a doctor, you need to get very high
Eh?
grades. But essentially, um, they still might lack philosophical intelligence in the sense that they don't really question their beliefs and they don't have fully developed philosophical theories or frameworks in their mind. So I would say, yeah, people are just not gifted at philosophical thinking, because if they were, they would arrive at a similar conclusion to humanism, not necessarily humanism, but I think they would have abandoned religion a long time ago. I think in some areas like the Middle East, it's a lot more difficult to abandon religion because it's very strongly reinforced. So even if someone is rational, so there's a lot of societal pressure to conform to religion. I mean, you're literally going to be killed if you abandon your religion. So I don't think people are willing to even question their religion in parts of the Middle East. So yeah, that's the thing. If you ask me why are there such few humans, I would say it's because people are not gifted in philosophical thinking. Few people, because even some people who study philosophy are still religious. So yeah, I would say even those who are philosophically studying philosophy, they may still arrive at the wrong conclusion. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tilwe. Stano, what do you think a humanist are so few and the poor people of religion are more? And yet humanism seems to make more sense than religion. Stano.
I think in religion, we don't apply the critical thinking. We are satisfied with what we know, and we are also satisfied with what we don't know. So we don't need to explore further or to think more beyond what we are being told by religion. So, and that is why, for example, I may quote the Bible. There is some Bible that the verse that say, the thing that they have not revealed to us human is not for us. The only thing that is for us is what have been revealed to us. That verse in the Bible. It encourages the believer or the religious people not to ask further question or not to think beyond that, just to be satisfied with what they know and to ignore what they don't know or to term them as a mysterious. So, but if, and as we know, we are many people are religion from birth. So the moment that you are born, they are being given, they are being brainwashed or being given those world view about the religion. So they don't know about any other thing. So they only accept the religion is the only truth. Their own religion is only the truth. So they cannot have any time to think beyond what the religion is telling them about morality or about other issues. And that is why you find many people, even those people who are learned, a PhD holder, they still rely on religion rather than critical thinking. They don't think about to get a certain solution about tomorrow or about anything that is will contradict with what their religion say. So by default, many people are religious, so you cannot expect them to come to the side of humanism because the side of humanism is like opposing the young God.
Okay, thanks, Stano. David, why are humanists fewer than the religious?
Thanks. I will add that it is because we are born in a religion. Religion, we are born. That is the thing. But with the philosophy, like everybody here has said, it is something that has got to originate with yourself, or you hear something and then something starts work. Other religion umepewa, you are given religion with your first meal, whether ilikuwa it was breastfeeding ama ulikuwa unapewa, whichever way you were given your first meal, ukapewa religion that way. By the time uko 5 years already umeshaambiwa there is somebody somewhere that takes care of your needs. Unaomba tu, we uliza tu, there is somebody that takes care of your needs. Therefore, it is like religion is just like junk food, easy to go down, but it is nothing. There are no calories. But on the other one, you have to work on it, and it doesn't go down so well. It is something that you have to work on. and not everybody is we all know how junk food goes down very well, and many people get into junk food very easily. That is religion, because somebody else has done all the heavy lifting for you with religion. With humanism, it is something that you have to work on for yourself, and it is uphill. You're swimming against the current. That's where there are not so many people who want to do that, because it's every day you are discussing something with somebody, something like that comes up, and then they are not. I remember somebody trying to convince me in our gardening community. I was just busy gardening, and then somebody comes there and tries to, some Zungu comes here to try to teach religion to this African. He even now the way he looks at me, that man probably just hates me. But and there is no hate like a Christian, like religious hate. There isn't. And I look at him and I say, "You started it. You came to preach to me." I was busy just digging my garden. You see, it was your problem. So what I'm just saying that that philosophy is against a lot of people. So not many people want to go that, or rather, some people haven't thought about it, but it is catching on. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, maybe I can ask another question. Now, if you're asked as a humanist, how do you wake up in the morning and live your daily lives? Just you're a humanist. There's no deity. There's no afterlife. How do you wake up in the morning? What makes you get up in the morning and maybe go to work, go to school as a humanist? What drives you? Thanks. What did you say? Because for me, atheists and humanists, okay, not all atheists are humanists, but atheism and humanism can go together very well. So now, since we are skeptics and atheists, I'm assuming that humanism will go well for most of us. So if I ask a question, like if somebody asks you, if you're a humanist, what makes you wake up in the morning to go to work, to go to school? What makes you get up in the morning if you don't believe in afterlife or something, a higher power? Thanks. Maybe Stano, what did you say? You asked without a God, no afterlife, what makes you get up in the morning and live your life, go to work, go to school? What makes you do that? What drives you with no afterlife, with no supernatural being in the sky watching you?
I think what motivates me to continue is because I fear death. I don't want to die, and I enjoy the life. Even if I don't get the food today, and tomorrow I get the food, I still enjoy because I'm surviving. I'm seeing things. I'm enjoying the environment. I'm enjoying having fun with the friends and doing other stuff. So I enjoy that is the thing that motivates me to continue living. So I wake up in the morning and work because the food have given me energy to wake up and to continue surviving. So the only thing that help me to do things is the food that I eat and preventing myself from contaminating myself with the germs that can give me diseases. So I try very hard not to get those diseases. And when I get those diseases, I seek medication so that I'm able to continue surviving. So the only thing that motivates me to live is because I am enjoying the life. I don't know what I can say beyond that.
Hello. By fear death, what do you mean? You said you fear death. Just explain more, please.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I say to fear death means I don't want to die. I want to survive, to continue enjoying life, even if sometimes it's difficult, but I rather live than die. So because this is only the life that I have.
Okay, so thanks. Okay, Deve, yeah, if you're an atheist or a skeptic and you follow humanism, What makes you get up in the morning to go to school, to go to work?
What makes me wake up as a humanist is also the same thing that made me wake up as a born-again Christian, that I had things to do to continue with my life. And there it is sunrise. I get up and I get ready for the day and I go do the job that I've been hired to do because I need to pay rent. I need a pair of shoes. Yeah, it is just for the continuation of life, because the alternative is not to have rent, not to have money for this, not to have money for the other. That alternative is not very, it's not very attractive for the Christian as well as for the humanist. The religious person might tell you that the Almighty woke them up in the morning, but that is just nonsense, because I'm not religious and God woke me up or whatever. Why would God wake me up if I'm not religious? So when they say that God woke them up, it's kind of, it's a little questionable. But I think we wake up by whatever the means that the body does, and then we wake up and then we realize, oh, I have got that work that has to be done, and if I don't do it, it will still be there tomorrow waiting to be done. So you just wake up and put one foot in front of the other and go do whatever you have to do. In fact, sometimes you even do some things that you don't really like doing, but you still go ahead and you do them because it's part of the process of life, the process of preserving your daily, or rather earning your daily life and preserving it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. So, Chilwe, with no DT, afterlife, what drives you in the morning to wake up? No God is watching you, no God to please, no heaven to go to. What gets you up in the morning? Chilwe.
I think it's just as the previous person has said, can't live life for free, so you have to work. And I mean, I don't want to die just yet, so I have goals and ambitions and things I want to achieve, and those things don't require a God. So yeah, just my goals and ambitions, things I want to do in life. I wake up every day and try to achieve them, as well as my obligations, like, earning a living, and also learning. For example, I like learning new things. I'm constantly reading books and audiobooks, leisure, sometimes enjoying nice food, nice things, nice movies. Yeah, so just a lust for life, just enjoying life. That's pretty much what makes me get up in the morning. So enjoying life as well as obligations. I don't really think it's that complex. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chilwe. Then I read somewhere that not all atheists are humanists. Now, supposing I say all atheists should be humanists, is that accurate? That all of us who are skeptics and atheists, we should be humanists because there's no other way. Is that right? If not religious, you have to be a humanist because it focuses on human beings. We control our destiny. We control our lives, and we make the best of life, what we have right now. So can I say that all skeptics and atheists should be humanists? Is that fair? Stan, what do you think?
What I can say, everybody in the world is humanist. It's only that sometimes our rational is limited to a certain set of value or a certain set of group. in a certain society. That is why you find the moral differ from one society or from one group to another. So we are all humanists, including religious people. It's only that the humanist is based on a small it's set in a certain set of moral in the religion. Because those who created religion, they come up with their own value, which they find is the best for the society. And that was based on human. It's only that they claim it came from divine.
Thanks, Tanu. David, should all skeptics and atheists be humanists? What do you think?
Can you repeat
David,
the question,
should all of us
please?
be humanists? Is there another way? Is that, yeah, can you say all skeptics and atheists should be humanists? Because if you don't believe in a God or an afterlife, then you must be a humanist. All of us should be humanists. Or is there another way besides humanists?
I think as a philosophy, it can't be forced on people. People have to come to that awakeness, to that realization on their own terms. They must march there for themselves. It's just the same as you cannot make somebody an atheist, that not all people must be atheists. Maybe some people need to stay in religion so they don't murder all of us. But I think it is a march. It's a very individual kind of march. As we are all marching to one place and we are in different stages. I think people have to get there by their own pace, at their own time, when they are ready. Now, I feel very bad when I see brains wasted and religion. Recently, when I was in Kenya, I would just listen to, every time I would listen to people. Thankfully, I have learned to listen without having to make any comments. You listen to people and you feel really bad, because some people are very smart, they are very able, but they have been crippled by religion. They've been and also those people who would like to extract themselves and head in another direction, they are impeded by the kind of society that they are in. They can't dare head that direction. Some of us have headed a different direction, and you paid the price that you have paid with the society. Some people can't march in another direction, but hopefully it will become popular and more people will be able to march without paying too big a price, march towards humanism or atheism or agnosticism without having to pay too much a price to the society in terms of society, or in the society they are living in. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Eugene, hi. Chebeleli. Eugene, are you there? Okay, so Chilwe. Chilwe, do you think all skeptics and atheists should be humanists?
So as I said in the beginning, I don't really think so, because from what I had Googled on humanism, they believe every person has intrinsic value and deserves respect and freedom. So to me, when I think of people like Leopold II or Hitler, I don't think those people deserve respect and freedom. So I don't believe those people have intrinsic value. I believe value should be based on how much you contribute to society or how much you're in line with society's values, which are progressive, assuming we lived in a society that was progressive. So some people are helping society progress forward, some are kind of taking it backward, at least from my perspective. So I believe like, yeah, people shouldn't just have intrinsic value. They should at least be helping society move forward, or at least not getting in its way. Then I would say they have value.
Okay, thanks, Chilwe. So now maybe I can ask this question. What are the advantages of humanism? What are the key advantages of humanism?
Are you asking me? Or
okay, no, that's true. No, that's to everybody, everyone. What are the advantages of being a humanist or humanism? Stano, what are the advantages of humanism?
I think there are so many advantages because one, we involve critical thinking, and when we are involving the rational, we come up with the things that will help us to flourish as a humans, that will reduce harm. And when the harm is reduced, that is how the society will prosper. So the main goal of humanism is to make human flourish without harming each other, and also come up with the solution how to deal with the environment problems, like natural disaster, how we can be able maybe to reduce them. If it's about flooding, how we can be able to reduce such kind, and how we can reduce the chemical that can harm our environment, that will trigger the human from flourishing.
Okay, thanks. Stano, Debe, advantages of humanism.
As I said before, the advantage is that it's a humanistic, a holistic, like a whole human being kind of thing. What applies to the humans in India applies to the humans in Africa and to the humans in America, because it's a human thing. It isn't about the Africans or about the Indians or about the North America. It's about the humans. So it is not it's not like a small deal thing. It's about humans. We like to eat, we like fresh air, we like good exercise, we like to go out there and do recreation. It's really so, yeah. So it's a whole human, holistic human thing, not a regional kind of formation. Thank you.
And to add on that, to add on what I was saying earlier about the religion, is also somehow humanist. For example, we see stealing and killing is harming the society or is harming each other. And the religion, or the one who came up with those rules and claim is from divine, he used those rules: do not steal, do not kill, because he find or she find is harmful to your fellow human when you kill your fellow human, or when you steal from your fellow human. So they were still humanist. It's only that they were using a different angle by claiming they get that command from God. The same case, we as a human, everybody in the whole world, we try to minimize harm from stealing from each other and from killing each other. And that is why every society have a rules to prevent killing and to prevent stealing. Because the work of humanists is to prevent any harm for the society to flourish.
Okay, thanks, Tano. So, what are the advantages of humanism? Children, advantages of humanism. Oh, I was muted, sorry. I'm asking Chilwe, what are the advantages of humanism?
I think basically we would live in a utopia if everyone is humanist.
Chilwe, you're there.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying I think basically we'd all live in a utopia if everyone is humanist.
You're breaking, Chilwe. You're breaking. You're breaking, Chilwe.
Can you hear me now?
And I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying basically we'd all live in a utopia if everyone was humanist.
So you're done, eh? That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, now, is there a downside to that, to humanism? Are there any disadvantages of humanism? Stano, are there any disadvantages of humanism?
I don't see any disadvantage. I only see the positive way. Yeah.
And supposing somebody says you're being biased because you're a skeptic or atheist or agnostic. What if somebody says that you're being biased because you don't believe in any deity? What did you say?
So the burden of proof is to the one who claim. So if someone claim I'm biased because I'm atheist or whatever, he must give us the evidence. He must give me the evidence to prove how am I biased with my rational thinking.
Okay, thanks. Deve, are there any disadvantages of humanism?
Thanks, Muriuki. I think I would have to add a few advantages before I go to the disadvantages. And one of the advantages is that we might, with more advancement of humanism, we might have less racism, less ethnocentricity, because we would just be looking at people as humans, period. So I think if that could be more advanced, then that could be an advantage. Now, the other advantage, as we have been saying again and again in this session, is the responsibility on the self. That one is that is one of the biggest things. When you know that if I don't go and do this ABCD, I'm not counting on somebody else to go and do it, so that I get up and I wake up in the morning and I go do that thing. That's the same thing with the humanism. We can say that, well, if I don't go help my neighbor, why should I be counting on somebody else when I can be human enough to go and help my neighbor with these things? So that kind of thing, laying a responsibility on oneself, and therefore being even more optimistic on what we're doing, because with humanism, because of this supernatural thing that punishes us and all that. It is not too optimistic. It is a little sad when you always say that somebody's about to punish you for something that you did, but all you are doing is that you are going there and maybe help the neighbor and all this. You're not thinking of hell. You're just thinking of your neighbor. Just helping your neighbor for the sake of your neighbor, not for the sake of a deity or a supernatural. You are doing that just for human dignity. Now, the disadvantages that have been recorded on humanism is that it's a philosophy without any human regard, without a scientific proof. But then I don't know if we need scientific proof when I know that my neighbor can help me, can be human enough to me and help me. What science do I need with that? Where is the science there? We only have humanism, but wait, maybe there's a way to prove, maybe with the numbers. If we had the numbers of humanisms, of humanists, and then their deeds, maybe we could have data of sorts. Or something more specific if we had the specific numbers. Now, humanism, of course, is an individual. It's an individual endeavor. It's an individual thing. It depends just on the person. The person has to get up and go and help the neighbor. The person has to get up and go and volunteer in a church, in a society, or in a social hall, in whatever. Yes, atheists can volunteer in churches because it's not like you're going there to pray. You're just going to volunteer, maybe even clean the church. You can even volunteer to clean the church. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that it is it's a thing that you as an individual, you decided that I am going to go to do this to help my neighbor. The other thing is, some people say that there are ethical concerns, and they say that religious perspectives that argue that humanism can be amoral or materialistic. But I do not see how that can have any issues if I can even go and volunteer myself in a church, or volunteer myself to collect garbage in my society. Well, how selfish is that? How is that materialistic if I give my time? So I don't see that advantage, but it is that is what is advanced by, particularly by on the religious aspect, that humanism is materialistic. If you can see the materialism in humanism, please do share. I would ask if somebody can see a materialistic aspect in materialism, in humanism. It would be nice to share. Thank you.
Thanks, David. David, a quick question. But can I say that we don't need scientific proof for humanism? Is that fair? I say we don't need. It's rather obvious that humanism makes sense. We don't need any scientific proof. Is that right? May I say that?
Not completely, because if we could have numbers, people come out and say, I'm a humanist. This is what I do. This is what I did. This is the humanist thing that I did this week. That could help. The numbers can always help. But because it's a very individual thing, it is just by our reasoning and our sense of responsibility. It's a bit tricky. In some areas, it can be subjective on who you are, what you are. But the human act, the humanistic act, there is no doubt about a humanistic act. If I went out and collected garbage in my area, papers flying all around, that is humanist, although it is the responsible thing to do. Do I have to be a humanist to do that? I probably have to be a very responsible person to go and do that. But then that says that then humanists are responsible. So there might be a lot of steps in the whole thing, but I think it can be scientifically mapped. It can be scientifically mapped out. Thanks.
So it's not something obvious, Ndebe. It's not an obvious thing, because I'm asking because unless you have issues there, every human being wants to be have good treatment, treated nicely. All human beings want to be treated nicely, to be respected, and humanism has a lot of that. So you say it's obvious. What humanism teaches is what most human beings want. I don't need proof. You're saying it's not accurate to say that it's obvious you want to be treated nicely, you want a good life, you want to live good lives. There's no proof needed for that. It's not right to say that.
But there are also people who could be humanists in the morning and later on, be a serial killer. We as human beings are very complicated. But I am sure there are people who are consistently humanistic. Let's just say that there is the good, the bad, and the ugly in us. But I think the people we are talking about, the humanists, I think they do the human thing, the humane thing every time without a supernatural being or supernatural laws, 10 commandments having been given to them. They are just a humanist, somebody that will do the human thing, the humane thing every time.
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, thanks. Okay, Eugene, advantages and disadvantages of humanism.
Thank you very much, Moroki. Though I'm well aware that I came in late, I think I got held up at work, so I was able to join in the meeting. Okay, but I believe that you defined what humanism is, and just before I talk about the advantages and the disadvantages, I think humanism is actually very broad, and it has several branches. And where atheists can feel at home is a branch known as secular humanism. However, you'll come to realize that there's also religious humanism, which I agree with what ex-Pastor Stano had talked about. He was touching on the same. He talked about religious people having humanistic values. So yes, it's not exactly limited to atheists. Yeah. And most of the time you will find someone saying that they go to church, they don't believe in God, but they do go to church just as a cultural norm. But they themselves don't believe in any God. So that's a good example of a religious humanist. The secular humanists are, I think it's clear we all know what they are or who they are. And also there's also another sub-branch known as ethical humanism. But this one ventures on the ethics about human dignity, the ethics, morals, and whatnot. Now, when it comes to advantages or why I would say that I'm a secular humanist, I think it goes without saying that, yes, in secular humanism, it actually supports evidence, reason, critical thinking. And it goes without saying that it actually supports science. It is backed, or it backs science. Science is like a tool in which it uses to learn more about the world. And it only makes sense because you can't really expect some divine instructions or divine interpretation when it comes to understanding how our universe works. So as a staunch secular humanist, I think I take it as a very strong point on why I support secular humanism. Another advantage is that it has moral autonomy. Like, there is no sets of instruction that a certain god or deity gives to you. Like, you only relate to your fellow human being as you would like someone to relate to you or with you. So yes, it goes without saying, as it still works with society, because there is an aspect of social interaction and how we interact from person to person or person to many people. So yes, there's like moral autonomy. We all have to decide what is good and what is bad. We don't necessarily rely on scriptures to say this is good and this is bad, because we know what or how it works. Another advantage it has, I think, it's because of secular governance. When you look at the proponents of humanism, it sought to separate the church and the state, because if we have the church and the state coming together, you will end up with a theocracy, or a religious or a religious country that is, that governs everything, including its constitution, its laws, and everything. So when you look at secular governance, it vouches for, people being secular, freedom of religion, having humanistic laws, not necessarily religious laws. And also another thing is that it focuses in this life, because this is the only life we have. This is the only evidence we have that this is the only life we have. So it doesn't really waste time on, speaking of the hereafter, or life after death, or honey and milk and flowing rivers and whatnot. It's here, right now. If there's anything going on, we have to sort it right now, because if we don't, at the end of the day, we are all humans stuck on this planet together. There's no gods, there's no Virgin Mary to come and save us. So yes, that's another thing that I'd say that it's an advantage. And lastly, I will talk about how it can adapt over time. It is actually dynamic, and it actually grows as our human knowledge grows, or the knowledge of mankind. As our knowledge grows, so does secular humanism, or humanism in general. So it's not really rigid like religion or the scriptures, in which something that was written over 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, we are still repeating the same thing here and then. No, it actually grows with our knowledge. You will come to understand that if in the past we had a secular humanist, right now the average secular humanist might be knowing more than what a certain secular humanist knew like 500 or 1,000 years ago from now. So that's another advantage. Now, when it comes to the disadvantage, I wouldn't say that there's no disadvantage. There is a disadvantage. And one of the things that one might say is that it's a disadvantage, but personally, I wouldn't say it is, but I understand why it is. It's the risk of moral relativism. Now, moral relativism, as I earlier said, as an advantage, that that humanism doesn't have a set of laws, religious laws, which determines this is good and this is bad. So it actually embraces morals being relative. However, one might say that because it does that, it might risk putting morality as a whole being relative. And personally, I don't think that's a problem. However, one might say that there'll be disagreements because there's no clear laws on what is good or what is bad. But I'd say that if people are guided by what benefits them as a person or as individuals or as a group, without necessarily infringing on someone else's rights or welfare, then there's nothing really wrong with that. So it's not an issue. But yes, I will say that it's one of these disadvantage. Another thing that I've read about how it is being criticized, there's this thing about it being Western centric. It's actually Eurocentric per se, bias. So you will come to understand that most of the ideas in modern humanism, they reflect Enlightenment era of European ideals. So they sort of ignore other indigenous indigenous groups. For example, if we have African or non-Western philosophers, and that doesn't mean that we never really had some semblance of humanism in traditional African society, or even in the East. We actually did, but with the modern humanism, it sort of reflects only the European ideals. So it sort of downplays other humanistic values. Like we've heard about Ubuntu. Ubuntu has nothing to do with gods. It has everything to do with cooperation, and it's been a tradition in some African societies. However, you will find it being downplayed, or it's not out when people are talking about modern humanism, but it is a humanistic value. Yeah. And also another disadvantage I'd talk about, I'd say that there is a lack of spiritual fulfillment for those who feel spiritual, which is relative, because personally, I don't really give a damn about my spiritual welfare, or even if I have one. But I wouldn't really judge any atheist who will feel some dissatisfaction with secular humanism, because it doesn't appeal to their spirit per se, in quotes. Yeah, it's like a level of satisfaction, finding fulfillment. And while someone might find fulfillment in religion, when it comes to atheism and other humanistic values, it doesn't really promise much, because number one, it's not really made to take care of your soul, but it's made to help you understand how the universe works and how you should relate to one another, and solve problems here and there. But I do understand why it's a disadvantage, because it doesn't have that lie of appealing to your soul that all will be well, like all your suffering will come to an end, you will get to rest after you die. It doesn't have that. So there's a level of dissatisfaction. There's lack of spiritual fulfillment. Another thing I'd say, it's also, I think, there is a weak community structure in humanistic societies. When you look at how the religious worldview cooperate with each other, they often share strong bond communities and all that. But when it comes to humanists, it's sort of isolated, if not, scarce. So humanists in these societies will tend to have a hard time, creating strong bonds and greater communities because of the same. So that's what I'd say that are some of the disadvantages. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. Dorcas, advantages and disadvantages of humanism.
Okay. Oh gosh, I don't know why you combined because there are so many points, and under advantages and disadvantages. Sorry?
Maybe begin with advantages. Begin with advantages.
Okay. Yes, and please notify me after my 5 minutes, please, Mr. Moderator. Ukumbuke, that was a resolution we made. People should not exceed 5 minutes. So please cue me when my time is up. First of all, apologies for joining you late. I was just not in a position to join at the beginning of the meeting, but I'm glad other people kept time, at least relatively speaking, because I saw the notification from YouTube that the live stream started at around 18 past the hour. So thank you for showing up, guys. Let's keep the fire burning. Advantages of humanism. I think they are enormous. Society, the world is better off with more humanist groups or humanist thinking vis-a-vis non-humanist thinking. It's just better off because even in the definition itself, it focuses on humans and their inherent value. Yeah, so that is an advantage in and of itself. Most of the other advantages, Eugene has highlighted them. Maybe I can just give different examples in terms of those advantages. For instance, human rights advocacy is a big one for humanism and humanist organizations. They really care about upholding human rights and defending the rights of oppressed peoples. These can be victims of war, because humanism, one of the principles is peace and justice, or women who perhaps are taken through some oppressive cultural practices. Humanism and humanist organizations tend to defend such groups. In fact, you guys, if you are humanists with a community leaning, you can create a proposal, send it to Humanist International, one that targets a local issue. It must be something local. A local issue like female genital mutilation or domestic abuse, things like those. And you send the proposal to Humanist International, they will give you funding. And of course, don't eat the money, do what you said you're gonna do. Intervene in your society to make it better. So through those projects, humanists have defended the rights of minorities. You guys know of Dr. Leo Igwe of Nigeria, who has an organization targeting victims of witch hunting and superstitious ideas in Nigeria. And you guys know how Nigerians are really big on witchcraft. They do all of that voodoo stuff a lot. So there have been many victims, especially children, who are accused of being witches or having been cast, and those children are ostracized, or even widows or elderly women. So Dr. Leo Igwe, through his organization, has helped those victims. And this is only possible because of support from humanist organizations or Humanist International. So that is a really big one for them, a big win. Another advantage is what it does in terms of community. Humanism tries to fill the gap that is left when you leave religion. It kind of acts like a substitute for religion. So we have some countries where there's humanist church, or they just meet up and have community together. Yeah, those organizations, those humanist organizations. In Kenya, sijui kuliendaje. I don't know where our humanist organizations are going. Imran should have come here to tell us, because he heads Kenya Humanists, but it's nothing more than a WhatsApp group. But in other countries, they provide very strong community. Additionally, they do preside over rites like weddings, funerals, and other life stages like naming through humanist celebrants. In fact, our very own Semakula and also Habek O'Brien are certified humanist celebrants. That is an advantage, especially if you belong to a discordant married couple. You are an atheist and your spouse is a Christian, or if both of you are from different religions, like this one is a Hindu, the other one is a Muslim, a humanist celebrant would bridge that gap, because they don't side with anyone. And the way they preside over those ceremonies is the way you guys like. It's not according to religious scripture, which maybe one of you doesn't subscribe to. So that unites people. I think humanism is very tolerant, and it is very appropriate for a diverse society with numerous religious or non-religious beliefs. Additionally, it has been effective in fighting for secularism. That is the version, secular humanism, separation of church and state. We never want religion to merge with politics. Nothing good can come from it. Politics plus religion, lethal combination. So humanism has been great at separating those two components. I think maybe my 5 minutes are up. Morioki, are they?
Well, I was listening, I forgot. I was so keen to listening, I even forgot. Yeah.
Okay. let me just.
You missed 7 minutes.
Oh my. Okay, let me leave it there. I'll talk about the advantages next, disadvantages next time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, is it fair to say that humanism can unite us and religion divides us? Can you say that humanism is better, but it brings humans together, but the religion divides us? Because there are so many religions, but humanism is focused on like one thing. But religions, because of the supernatural, the deity, there are so many. So I'm asking, is it fair to say that humanism will work better because it's like it's somehow one, but religion are too many? Is that fair? Thanks. Okay, Eugene, you can go, Eugene.
Yeah, let me first start by responding to your question. Then I then I resume the input I was about to say before I forget. Okay. Yes. On from one perspective, yes, we can say that religion is divisive. We have denominations and sects, and everything else. But it's also wise to know that humanism also has branches. It's not really one giant philosophy, but yes, it's one philosophy, one giant philosophy, but it has branches, sub branches inside it. For instance, we have secular humanism, we have religious humanism, we have ethical humanism, and so on and so on. So yes, but they are not divisive anyway. Yes, so yes, it can be used as a tool of bringing unity. Even I think it's the only thing bringing unity among atheists. There's nothing else. I haven't come across anything else that brings people together if not humanism. I think for the love of humanity, in as much as we don't believe in gods and whatnot, there's actually some underpinning that unites us all. And yes, I think Neve had earlier pointed it out that it's not also wise to impose philosophy on people, like saying just because you're an atheist, then you qualify as a secular human. Um, because taking a philosophical standpoint, it requires your own volition, your own input, your own thinking capacity to make a stance, to say that yes, me so and so, I identify as a humanist in as much as I'm an atheist. So we can't really assume that just because one is atheist, one is now a humanist. Now, that said, I was about to also address, I think Muriki, you had asked a question earlier and I had forgot to talk about it. Where you asked, does humanism require any proof or any evidence to validate it? Now, when it comes to philosophical standpoints, you don't really require any evidence. What you require, it's actually a clear thinking process, because it's philosophy anyway. It's about thinking. So if you can demonstrate that you can think logically, that you can think in a well understood sequence, then there's nothing wrong with identifying to a certain philosophy. You don't really have to require any hard evidence per se. Now, you will only require hard evidence when you start to make claims, logically speaking. Like, for instance, I come and say that, you know what, there's a giant teapot out there. So that's a claim I'm making. It won't be a philosophy anymore. So what you will be asking is for evidence. Is there any evidence for your giant teapot up there? So if I don't have, you'll know it's bullshit. And if I have, you'll know it's true. Yeah. So, but when it comes to philosophical standpoints, you don't require any hard evidence, because it's not a claim you're making. It's just a line of thought or a perspective you're taking. That's why they are called standpoints or viewpoints. For instance, if you can identify as a nihilist, you can usually say that it doesn't really matter. Nothing ever really matters. That's your perspective, and there's nothing wrong with your perspective anyway. Maybe that's how you view life anyway. So the same thing when it comes to to humanism, that I think we can get on together without necessarily invoking some, supernatural or deities. Our own problems are ours, and we require some certain principles or values like human dignity, human rights and stuff, and so on and so on. So that's a viewpoint, and it actually works.
1 minute, yeah?
Yeah.
1 minute,
Yeah.
please.
And
1 minute.
it actually works. You don't necessarily require any scientific evidence to tell you that, you should value human dignity. It's just being a decent human being. But what now humanism does, the good thing about it is that it uses science as a tool. Now I think I can bring it into perspective. Science is the tool, humanism is the worldview or the viewpoint. It's not the other way around. Science is not any viewpoint, it's just a tool to understand the world.
Thanks, Eugene. Yeah. So, Doctors, yeah, can you say that humanism will work better because it's somehow one, but religion, there are too many things.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that was one advantage I was to mention before time ran out. The advantage with humanism over religion is that with humanism, especially its ethics, is based on evidence and reason, as well as scientific thinking. vis-a-vis religion, which bases its morality on its religious texts. So religion requires you to first jump through one hurdle before you buy into their morality. With religion, you have to first be convinced that Islam is true, that Hinduism is true, that Christianity is true, before you start living by their morals. However, with humanism, those morals or those values are based on reason. You know, there's no requirement for you to believe something without evidence first. No, it's based on reason, it's based on scientific thinking, which is, to me, a better approach. And in religion, we have denominations which also interpret their holy books differently. So definitely that will bring division. But with humanism, even if we have different branches, the overarching principles are the same. In fact, I think there's this one shared by Humanist International containing the 10 principles of humanism. I believe you guys discussed most of them. So yes, it definitely unites. Of course, there might be some minor disagreements here and there on a few issues, but for the most part, they speak with one voice. Now, let me continue with my advantages and disadvantages. I wanted to add that humanism has done a lot of charity work, which again does not require you to believe a certain dogma, a certain religious idea. With religious charities, they will give you donations, but they'll also preach to you. You know, I have some good news I need to share about the gospel of Jesus Christ. No, with humanism, it is no strings attached charity. We have examples like Foundation Beyond Belief. We have Humanist Climate Action, and we have Humanist Mutual Aid Network, which has done a lot of work with nations at war or people experiencing hunger and other human needs. So that's definitely a plus. Then even their ethics, which I've just spoken about, is superior in my view compared to religious ethics. Now, when it comes to disadvantages, I also agree with Eugene on most of the points he made. Let me just explain them.
Dr. 2 minutes, huh? 2 minutes.
Okay. 2 minutes are many. So one of them is the strategy that humanists use. I think they need to mobilize, organize, and centralize more. The fact that there is no supreme leader can work against us. In as much as it's also a problem because it is a source of dictatorship in religion, it can also be a disadvantage because people are not working towards common goals, or they're not pulling resources as much as they could if they were united. Additionally, we have the problem of Western values. And even though Eugene mentioned this, I think specifically I can cite LGBTQ rights being kind of divisive for some communities. They might not agree on all of the people in that alphabet and giving them rights. So it can be a bit problematic on that front. Lastly, I think there's the issue of mission creep, in that they're doing so much. Mara, they are attempting secularism, separation of church and state. They do charity work. They do this, they do that. Like, it can be overwhelming and you might not be
Time
as
is up,
effective.
Dorcas. Time is up.
Oh.
Okay, Douglas, finish your point. It won't be as effective. Just finish that. It won't be as effective.
Yeah, it might not be as effective if you are that spread out.
Okay, David, just your opinion. David, do you agree that humanism being somehow one and religion being so diverse gives humanism an advantage? Do you agree, David?
I don't know if they should even be divisive. If religion was, and I'm going to use the word, let me use were. If religion were for the good of humanity, then humanism and religion should have no problem. But if you find that there is a problem, then be warned that one of the two is wrong. And I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave the door wide open for which one is wrong, because if we are all working for the good of humanity, we should kind of almost be having the same goals. So yeah, if we find that they are not working together, if they have disagreements, then beware. Thank you. Was that the question, Moriuki?
Yeah. So I'm going that you agree that there are so many religions that's dividing us, but humanism will bring us together. That's what I heard.
Yes, and I'm saying that if you find that religion and humanism are not in agreement, then we have questions, right? We have questions as to what is religion for then. It's not for humans. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Now, this you didn't mention the branches of humanism. He mentioned that there are branches of humanism. The secular humanism and the one which is religious. Now, what if I say this one, which is religious, has a problem, not in a bad way, because of the deity? What's a religion have to do with humanism? Because they believe in a deity or something supernatural. So this religious humanism, for me, isn't working. Secular humanism makes sense, but religious humanism, because the part of the supernatural won't work. Is that fair? That there should be no religious, you can't correct religion and humanism. Is that right? Okay, Chilwe.
Hello, Marioki. I had some issues with my internet, but I believe now it's sorted. I just wanted to speak briefly about the disadvantages of humanism. I think I didn't hear everything Doc said because my Wi-Fi was acting up and I had to reset the router. But I think the main disadvantage that I see, which I don't know if anyone spoke about it, is it's kind of foolish to assume that people will always make the rational and ethical decision. So, for example, in terms of rationality, just simply, even in our daily lives, like if someone was to decide between spending money now and investing money in the future, a lot of us probably should have invested more money in the future. And when it comes to the ethical decision, it's the same. You know, there's this movement I saw in the UK where people people say that if you earn above a certain amount, you agree to give the rest to charity. So, like, let's say you earn like enough to live like to live like maybe in a small apartment and have like a few clothes and stuff like that. But that's what they're doing. But here in Kenya, I'm just wondering, out of all of us in this group, who, because again, I'm the one who said I don't necessarily believe in humanism 100%. But for those people who say they're humanist, in terms of the ethical decision, for those people who have made money, how many times have you gone to gone out to eat at a restaurant or buy a drink when there's food at home, yet there are starving children in Yemen, there's war in Palestine, there's war in Sudan, there's war in Congo, and there are easy ways to donate. There's an app there's an app I used to have when I was in Australia earning a lot of money. You can donate like even $1 or $2 to feed people in Yemen. So I'm just wondering how many so-called humanists are actually making the most ethical decision. Yes, they make some ethical decisions, but they don't make the most ethical decisions. And that's why I'm saying it can be a bit too idealistic. Second of all, I don't think there's an agreed upon definition of what's rational and what's moral, because if anyone has studied philosophy, whether formally or informally, you have all these great philosophers, right? But almost none of them agreed with each other. Some of them influenced each other, and obviously some agreed, but most criticized each other's work and most formed their own branch of philosophy. So even within philosophy itself, there's a lack of uniformity and unity. So what's defined as rational isn't really agreed upon. You can look at political philosophy, for example, or economics, where should we be capitalist, socialist, or communist? It's not really agreed upon. And you have Karl Marx and Adam Smith, who are arguably good philosophers, debating on how the economy should work. I mean, economics is slightly different from philosophy, but I just use that as an example because the other philosophical examples might take time to explain. And with morality, I'm wondering what humanists define as morality, because you have deontological ethics where something is right or wrong all the time, regardless of the situation. And you have teleological ethics, which is the end justifies the means, or consequentialism, where it's still the same, but it's about the end. And you have utilitarianism, which is the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So even with morality, I'm not sure people have 100% agreed on what they define as being moral or being ethical. So I think the lack of framework is problematic, because at least with a book like the Bible, it's
Actually,
very,
1 minute. Actually, 1 minute. 1 minute.
the Bible is very clear on what you should and shouldn't do, but I don't think the humanists have yet worked out that framework. Finally, it's a bit too human-centric, and I think Morioki will agree in the sense that they don't really care about animal rights. Maybe they do, but it's not intrinsic to humanism. So movements like veganism might feel as if humanism overshadows the rights of animals, as they don't mention it as part of their manifesto. Yeah, I'm done.
Thanks, Chile. Maybe Chile, when you come back, in morals, like you see, Hitler, the Nazis, to them, they thought that they're doing the right thing by killing the Jews. But to any human being, that was just wrong. But at that time, it appeared right. Even the colonialists in Africa, these colonizers, slavery, at that time, it seemed right to them. But now for every person who's rational, they'll see it was wrong. So my point is, at times in morality, it's rather obvious, but it depends on the person and the time. So you come back just say, am I right or wrong? So thanks. Okay, Eugene.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maruki. Again, I'd also thank Chilwe for raising some points which I was going to address coincidentally with what I'm about to say. Now, a lot has been said about humanism and its branches and so on. And I think if I can start from chronological order, I think it was Dorcas who said that I think it has a disadvantage that humanism seems to be all over the place, tackling several topics here and there. I think that's a very good observation, and that's why I was talking about why one shouldn't consider humanism as one giant unanimous umbrella that has specific universal goals that all humanists adhere to. It doesn't really work that way. It doesn't really work that way. And connecting that with Chilwell's question, or again, he again put it as a disadvantage on, for instance, which kind of or what morals does it apply? Another important thing to note about humanism, it doesn't really have a say on morals. It doesn't really have a claim, or it doesn't really say these are good morals, we should operate on these morals, or we should operate on that morals. Again, the same thing when it comes to rationality. It doesn't go ahead to define what rationality is, but it vouches for, you will rather put all your beliefs or whatever you're doing in life, either being rational versus attributing the same towards a deity or a supernatural being. But it doesn't tell you the specifics, like this is not, now this is a rational point of thinking, now you should operate this way. Now, which again pushes me further to now highlight what these branches are. For instance, again, Chilwe raised a very important question. For instance, there are kids dying in Yemen, Iran, Afghanistan, all those, Syria, while you're there doing your shopping and you don't really give a damn about, yet you're calling yourself a humanist. That's again, it has a simple answer. As I earlier said, humanism isn't really just one monolithic belief or point of view that all humanists should adhere to, that all humanists should be philanthropists, that all humanists should be this and this. It doesn't work that way. Now, when we talk about the branches, we have secular humanism, which most of us fall into, separation of church and the state. That's strictly what it deals with. So it doesn't really have a say on whether you should donate your money to maybe someone else or maybe to the needy or care in that. Now, apart from secular humanism, now we have another thing called ethical humanism. Now, this is where the philanthropists fall into. Like, you're a humanist, you believe that all our problems can be solved through our own cooperation without necessarily invoking any deities or the supernatural. So you will join, these philanthropic societies, and there's nothing wrong with that. So there are those kind of humanists. So it doesn't really mean that just because you guys are atheists, so I expect you guys also to be philanthropists. It doesn't really work that way. Now, it again brings me to a point where I think Muriuki misunderstood it. When we talk about religious humanism, it doesn't really, yes, in as much as the word can look like a pseudonym, it's misleading, it has a hidden meaning, but it's not really obviously that. When you talk about religious humanism, this is, again, it's humanism because they don't really need any supernatural. These are people who go to church just for the culture or for the sake or for the tradition, but they don't really believe in any God. So their humanistic ideals aligns with the religious norms or practices, or way of life of religion. So they incorporate the two. That's how you end up with religious humanism. But they themselves, they don't believe in any God. These are people who go to church and they don't believe in God. These are people who celebrate Christmas, Easter, Passover and whatnot, but they don't really believe in those things. They do it for the family, for the sake of coming together and all, and so on and so on. So, and you realize very many people fall here, but they don't even realize. But you can't really impose that they actually are secular human and that they actually are religious humanists, because if they are, they will tell you that. And yes, there are people who are conscious that they are, and they'll tell you that I'm a religious humanist. So it's not really paradoxical. It's just you about understanding the concept behind it. Yeah. And also, I think also, Chile, we talked about Karl Marx and so on. We also have those kind of, yeah. Sure.
1 minute.
We also have those kind of humanists. Like, their only problem, it's all about Marxist humanism or socialist humanism. It has nothing to do with them giving to the charity, but it has everything to do with them always challenging the right politics. They be on the left side of the economy. They vote for the left-sided economy. Like, these are Marxist humanists. So it's not odd that you wouldn't find them talking about helping the needy. You wouldn't find them talking about separation between church and the state, but they'll tell you everything about economics. So it's actually okay or wise to acknowledge that humanism has several branches that deal with very different aspects in life. But the beauty about it is that these are different aspects in life as you'd expect. So it's actually multifaceted, unlike religion, which only focuses on, your belief and the hereafter. So again, humanism is actually, those are actually turned into a great advantage. I wouldn't say that they are disadvantages. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. Dorcas?
I believe Ndeve was first.
Oh, sorry, David. Okay, David, go. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Murithi. Thanks, Dorcas. Mine is as a question, because somebody referred to the Bible as a package of humanism. Unless I got the framing wrong, I just want a clarification from Chillwave, how the Bible relates to humanism. That bothered me. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so still we've not done. Okay, Dorcas?
Okay, I wanted to make 2 points. The first one is a response to something that Chilwell said. It looks like everybody is piggybacking on Chilwell's comments. I think they were very piercing comments. And no, nobody mentioned the point that you started with on how idealistic humanism can be, by assuming that humans are rational, or humans would want to make decisions rationally. Now, that's what I wanted to respond to. I think that most philosophical positions are aspirational. They're not necessarily practical. And humanism is a philosophy. It's a worldview. So you find that maybe something like Kantian ethics, of which, by the way, I am one. I'm a Kantian ethicist. We believe that you focus on treating humans as an end in themselves, not a means to an end. And when you're making ethical decisions, you should make them assuming that you are creating a universal law. If you put yourself in that position that I'm creating a universal law, then you might make decisions differently. If you needed to bribe a policeman at a weighbridge, you'd ask yourself, would this be a universal law? How would society operate if everybody was bribing policemen at weighbridges? Society would fall apart, the economy would collapse. So you don't do it on that front. But it is aspirational in that you can't follow all those principles every time. But you try to, you do your best to implement them. Similarly with humanism, we can't be rational all the time. And maybe even practically, many of us are not practical, but we can aspire to. I think if you provide 2 scenarios, you give somebody the example of going out into the night without a sweater and going out into the night with a sweater, which one is more rational? People will agree. I think by and large, we overcomplicate these things in these Zoom meetings. You're saying, oh, we can't agree on what is rational, what isn't. By and large, human beings would tell what is reasonable and what isn't, what is rational and what isn't. And I think we shouldn't castigate humanism for wanting us to be better. Yes, we concede that most people make decisions based on emotions, but we can do better. We can train ourselves to become more critical thinkers, more rational thinkers. Most people want to be selfish. but we can train ourselves to become
Doctor, 1 minute.
more considerate. Okay, more considerate of others. So that's what I wanted to say with regard to Chilwell's comment. Then I wanted to add one last criticism of humanism, which is its exclusion of religion under the secular humanist branch. I think in places like the States, they have sponsored the National Day of Reasoning when they have on the same day the National Day of Prayer. So it can seem like it's kind of antagonistic. You know, it has an anti-theistic tint to it, which some people might disagree with. But personally, I support it. I support secularism. I support removal of religion from the public space. But of course, the people who are targeted, the privileged religious class, will oppose it. I know my time is up. Let me leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. Okay. Stano, how much time do you have left? Stanley, how much time do you have?
We have time to say goodbye. So we have around 10 minutes.
Okay. Thanks.
But
okay,
Chilwell has a right of response.
Chilwell, as you answer Doctor, I also want to ask morality, like slavery, stealing, and Nazism colonization. Are they wrong, or it depends? Basically, morality, is it obvious? It depends. Thanks, Chilwell.
Yeah. I think those things are wrong. Like, I think morality is relative, and in terms of how I think we should determine morality, it's about people coming together and deciding how they want to live in a society, and that may be good for some people and bad for some people. But yeah, I think I view morality as being subjective. So from my subjective perspective, I think those things are wrong. In terms of what Dr. Lucevelli said, he said, secular humanism doesn't prescribe a lot of the things I was complaining about. And I was like, I agree it doesn't, but I'm saying maybe it should, because if it did, a lot more people might subscribe to it, because maybe they don't see the point in subscribing to something that's a bit vague. Because I think if something isn't clarified, it just leads to more factions forming and more disagreements that are there. So it makes it harder to get the message across. Like, that's ironically how monotheistic religion spread, is because with pantheism, they used to say that you can worship your God as long as you worship our God as well. But with monotheism, they said there's only one God and you can't worship your God anymore. So the fact that they're not prescribing a certain morality or a certain rationality, I think that's problematic based on history. So yeah, and as I was saying for Dorcas, like
okay, in the Bible, how about the Bible? You said the Bible. Like you mentioned the Bible also. It defines well morals, yeah? Did I hear right? That's what David asked that question about the Bible.
I'm not sure it was me who said something about the Bible. I think that was someone else.
Oh, David, what did you want? What did you ask him, David? What did you ask him? David, are you there? You asked him something about the Bible. David.
Yes, he said it is a package. It's a solid, something like it's a solid package of humanism. That's something like that, like the Bible and humanism. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Chile,
yes, I
yeah,
remember
please,
that.
yeah, Chile, respond to that, please, Chile. Just respond.
No, I don't think I said that. I think that was someone else.
Okay, so,
Okay,
okay.
okay, my bad, my bad. I must have misheard it.
I think what you said was that unlike religion, humanism doesn't have a central collection of ideas. With religion, they have something like the Bible, which brings together all of the doctrines that they believe in. I think he said something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chile.
Oh, okay, 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 okay. Maybe
Okay.
it was just that the mentioning of humanism, and I don't know why I connected, my mistake that I connected the Bible and humanism, while the leading text, the Bible, has got the 10 Commandments, and humanism doesn't appear in number 1, number 2, number 3. Like humanities that don't appear in number 1, number 2, number 3, all those commandments until later in I think in number 5, where not to kill. That is like almost at the end of the, well, anyway. So that's why I erased it. Thank you.
Okay, Eugene, closing remark, Eugene.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. I think just before I close, I think just to respond to what Chilo was saying, that it's problematic that humanism doesn't have a set of morals. I think with humanism or secular humanism, we don't necessarily need religious laws to tell us what is right and what is wrong. We have laws, just like it took humanism to ban slavery. It didn't take religion to ban slavery. So the same way we realize that slavery is actually bad for society, without necessarily involving a set of laws written passed down from gods, people just sat down and thought that this is wrong. It's wrong for a human to own another human being, so let's do away with it. That's the same approach. We need laws. We don't need religious writings of morals or what morality is, because humanism just leaves morals just as they are. And I very much agree with you that morals are very much relative. I'm a moral relativist. However, I actually pointed it out that yes, some, for instance, moral absolutists who are atheists might see that as a threat, so they will put it as a disadvantage of humanism, and it's valid, it's okay. So yes, otherwise it's been a very good debate, very great moderation, Muriuki, and yeah, I've actually enjoyed.
Well, thanks, Eugene. Stephen, say something. Stephen, as we close. Stephen, you're there. Okay, not there. Okay, Doctors, you can close.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
go
Stephen,
ahead,
yeah.
Stephen.
Go, Stephen, yes.
Oh, yeah. So it was a wonderful discussion. I enjoyed listening in to each and every aspect and each and every subtopic. I have learned a thing or two. I didn't know much about the subject matter, so I didn't have much to contribute. But I really loved the discussion, and you, Morioki, you did a good job in moderating the topic. For everyone else,
Thanks.
can have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, Doctors, you can close.
Wonderful. I would like to thank Morioki, the moderator, for stepping in at the last hour, like 11th hour, kabisa. We thought one of the humanists among us would do it. We reached out to them, the people who lead humanist organizations. We have them in our WhatsApp group, but they are so dicey. It's so hard to get a hold of them, and they kept telling us, I'll tell you tomorrow. Then tomorrow reaches, I'll tell you tomorrow, until when it reached today and they told us they can't moderate, both of them. So thank you, Morioki, for stepping in. And thank you, everybody.
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you, everybody who contributed. I know I came in late, but I had a lot from Eugene. I had plenty from Chillwave. In fact, he sparked some further questions from his contributions, which I think were very refreshing. Thank you, Ndeve, for your contribution. And of course, Morioki himself. I think also Stano spoke a bit at the beginning when I had not logged in yet. In my view, I think we need more humanists in Kenya. We need them active. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Charity is not a monopoly of religion. We need secularism enforced in practice, not just in theory, within our country. And this is where humanists come in. We also have a lot of minority groups that are hurting, like the widows, like the children. All of this, I think we need to step up. Humanists are too passive in Kenya. Let's do more, guys. Let's do more. And let's not focus only on the criticisms of humanism. Let's focus on those positives and let's amplify them, because I am a humanist and I believe most of us here are. So let's continue that movement. With that said, I think even our time is up on Zoom. I wish you guys a lovely night. Let's meet next week to discuss the book of Revelation. Is it apocalyptic or is it propaganda? Clinton will take us through that one. Yeah, so good night or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. See you later.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.